Imagine it's your first day of teaching and there's one kid flat on the floor, face down, not moving. Sorry about that intro, it might have scared you a bit, but today I wanted to share one of the most dramatic times in my teaching career, and it still affects me to this day. So let's go back to when it all started. So it was my first day as a newly qualified primary school teacher, and I remember I was so excited. All before leading up to this day, throughout the summer holidays, I've been going into the school, getting all of my displays ready, setting up a really cute reading corner, and I'd been naming all the books, thinking about fun activities to get to know my class and for them to also get to know me. And I'd even carefully got all these little objects to really help show them who I am and the things that I loved. And I remember when it finally came to that day, I had like a sleepless night because I was so nervous to go in. And then on the morning of my first day, I remember getting in really bright and early, and I was setting up all of these fun activities, just preparing to greet all of the children, making sure their pegs were all ready. And I saw all of the little children coming into the classroom, the parents nervously waving goodbye. And I remember just that excitement that this was a new chapter where I was finally a fully qualified teacher, because I did 3 years of training. So this moment was quite a big moment for me, and I was just really excited to just prove myself and to just finally teach, which is what I love to do. The children all very quickly found their pegs with a little picture of them. They explored the reading corner that I'd set up, and they even just looked at all the displays and were asking me lots of questions. So it was just really nice to finally meet them and to welcome them into the space. So everything had gone so smoothly until I'd sent all the children off to their tables, and that's when I noticed one boy just sat in the middle of the classroom with his head straight down on the floor, and he was just not moving when I called his name. So I went over to him, I prodded him, I tapped him, and he was just not moving. I then tried to physically lift him up, and he was just completely non-responsive. So I started kind of tapping at his arms, just trying to wake him up, but he was floppy, he was limp, and his eyes were closed, and he just wasn't waking up. And that's when I started to check his pulse, and I was really concerned that I didn't feel that I could feel anything. So that's when I got some water, I dashed it on him to try and get some kind of reaction, but there was nothing. So obviously you can imagine how I felt, because I was really thinking the worst. All the children were starting to pick up that something was wrong, and I didn't even have a class phone. There was nothing to really contact anyone. So I just ran into the next classroom, and I can't believe this happened, but I could not talk. I think I was in so much shock that I couldn't actually get the words out, because I didn't really want to say what I thought had happened. So I remember just staring at the other teacher like this, and they instantly knew something was wrong. So they ran over into my classroom, and that's when I knew something was really, really wrong, because they also could see what I'd just seen and just immediately started shouting and screaming, "Help." And I wish I'd done that a lot sooner, but I was in so much shock. I just didn't know what to do. And very quickly, loads of people came in. There was lots of support. The medical room lady came in, and it turned out that the boy had had a seizure. So they understood what had happened. They knew who the boy was. So they had apparently seen something similar to this before. So luckily, I started to calm down and realize that there were things that could be done to help him, but obviously I was massively shaken up, in a lot of shock. I started to just cry because I was under so much pressure, thinking, I'm responsible, I don't know what's happened, is this my fault? So many questions were running through my mind, and lots of people were calmly but firmly asking me what happened, what's his name, what's his sort of medical history, and all these questions were coming my way. And imagine, this was my first day as a teacher, and a lot of time and effort had gone into planning the day, but I suppose one of the most important things is checking all of the medical information, thinking about where the medication is, thinking about what would you do in an emergency situation, who do you call, where do you turn to, all these things. And I was the only member of staff in that classroom. So as a newly qualified teacher, on my first day, It was a lot. I was then very quickly rushed off to just calm down and process what had just happened. And thankfully, I got the news a little bit later in that day that he was fine and was being really well looked after. But you can imagine this was a really, really terrifying experience, especially on my first day. And I'd never witnessed anything like it in my entire life. And it still really does get to me, where even when my children now, because I've got like little toddlers, when they go to sleep in the day, I'm constantly prodding them, checking they're okay, because it was such a scary experience. And I'm not sure if you know about seizures, but they can be quite common, especially if a child has a temperature spike or they might have epilepsy. But there are so many different reasons for why a child might have a seizure. And it's definitely worth all teachers having first aid training, because I wish I had have had that, because I would have known to put him in the recovery position and all of these things. But it's really important that teachers understand what to do in the case of an emergency, and that's something I wish I had had more training in. So the most valuable lesson I learned from this experience is that the most important part of your role as a teacher is to make sure that your class is safe, that they're really taken care of, even things like making sure they're hydrated, they're well, just really making sure that everyone in the class is happy, because that is ultimately the most important thing, the most important part of your job. And it's actually very hard because you've got 30 children, and the younger they are, the more responsible you are for ensuring their well-being and their safety. And another thing this showed me is the power in community. So many people after this scary experience came to offer me a hug, came to offer me just a shoulder to cry on, came to comfort me, to check in with me. And it was just really nice to see how many people had heard of what had happened and knew how scary that must have been, especially on my first day of teaching. So it really goes to show that community is a really beautiful thing and that people will always be looking out for you. So although the main thing is to ensure the children are happy and well and safe, it is also important to just acknowledge that as teachers, we carry a lot. So it's important to also look after yourself and your mental well-being. So if you've also had a really scary or stressful experience in the classroom, then please know that you're not alone. And I have made a video with 10 tips on how to reduce your work and stress. So if you'd like to check this out, I'll link it down below in the description. And you can also find it by clicking on this video here. So thank you for watching today's video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.